right, happy Friday here at the Scarlet Faithful podcast. The third weekend of May, Memorial Day weekend, just 1 week away now, and Rutgers men's basketball heating up. But before I get going, wanted to say this episode of the Scarlet Faithful podcast is brought to you by Knights of the Raritan, Rutgers NIL Collective. I encourage you all to subscribe to the Knights of the Raritan newsletter for an inside look at all things Rutgers athletics. Knights of the Raritan provides a unique way for Rutgers athletic programs to be successful in the ever-changing NIL environment. Become a member of the Knights of the Raritan for a chance to win giveaways, unique experiences, exclusive event invites, and more. The link to signing up for the newsletter is in the description of this episode on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. So let's get to Rutgers men's basketball. Jamie Shaw of On3 Sports reporting Thursday night that three-star forward Jamie Vinson is set to visit Rutgers men's basketball on Saturday and Sunday. He is in the class of 2024, was an early signee with Vanderbilt. Jerry Stackhouse was fired as coach after this past season, and he received his release from his national letter of intent. He recently visited South Carolina, coming off a very good year under Lamont Paris. He is also set to visit Kentucky on Monday and Tuesday, new head coach Mark Pope. He is, in terms of his scouting report that I've read from several different services, should first mention that he seems to have had a growth spurt. His profile page on 24/7 Sports initially lists him at 6'9", 180. He's now listed at 6'11", 210. I've even seen him listed at 220 on a certain service. And the scouting report is basically he's a elite rim defender at his level in terms of high school. He has a wingspan of 7'5". He can stretch the floor. He has a solid shot for a big man. Athletic, not off the charts athletic, but good in terms of how he moves, and has a lot of potential. He was ranked just inside the top 250 in the 224 class, listed number 40 center nationally, top 10 in both. He comes from Texas. He also obviously plays for Oak Hill Academy, a powerhouse prep program in Virginia. So he's ranked in the top 10 in both of those states, if that makes any sense. But, whether it's his home state or where he actually played this past year, he is, first of all, I think this just, again, shows that Rutgers is being as resourceful as possible. I think it was assumed and maybe, well, probably more so hoped for that Rutgers, if they were going to add a big, it was going to come from the transfer portal. We've talked at length about NIL and the challenges there with the big man market and how kind of out of control it is. Great Usabor just getting reportedly $2 million to go to Washington. But a lot of bigs that Rutgers has inquired about, targeted to a degree. It appears all their asking prices have been, mid-six figures and above. Obviously, Cliff Amore leaving Rutgers and signing with Alabama, reportedly for well over $1 million in NIL. So it's been a challenge. So to go to the high school ranks makes sense from an NIL perspective. And listen, no roster is guaranteed past a year. But when you have a roster that, is very much built for this year, if you can get some guys that you think you can develop over time, that's a positive. And Vincent, it seems like it's a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of his size. And the offer list is impressive. He's a lot of SEC schools after him. Ole Miss originally offered before he committed to Vanderbilt. And obviously, getting a big that can defend and rebound is a must. It's going to be interesting. Obviously, with Kentucky now involved, they, of course, have pretty much unlimited NIL resources. But can Rutgers impress him? How much does he want to play with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, his classmates? Obviously, Lathan Somerville already coming. I would think that, and I know a lot of people wanted a starting center out of the portal. As with a lot of things on this roster, I think there's a lot of moving parts. I think there's a lot of different ways they can go. It's a very versatile roster. Is it ideal to have two freshmen and a player with just 1 year D1 experience and 1 year JUCO coming off, now a year removed from a pretty big injury, torn ACL and Egbole? You can't say it's ideal, but I think adding Vincent would be a good move in terms of adding depth. He's obviously got some high upside there. I mean, if Kentucky wants him, certainly bodes well for his potential. But the staff has always been very good at identifying talent. And, if you go into the season with a third big, even if it's not an experienced big, with the NIL situation, and, it's definitely improved this year for Rutgers. And again, just a reminder, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, I think a large portion of the NIL they're receiving is outside of, directly from Rutgers, meaning the Knights of the Red and the collective, but also just in terms of local businesses and such. I think it's, there's lots of rumors out there, but, it's certainly being funded in a way that I don't think is reflective of the rest of the NIL pool they have to work with, put it that way. And so you're getting kind of a high value by adding a high schooler that, has a lot of potential and a lot of high major SEC interest that could fit a need in terms of being a rim defender, being a rebounder. Sounds like he does fit how the offensive style would be in terms of, he's pretty, he's rubbery, he's long and thin, and he can space the floor some. So that's the kind of big they want to get. They don't want a plotting big that needs, 10 post-ups a game. Somerville is obviously bigger, but he is very agile. He's got great footwork for his size. He grew up a guard, grew into this big man body now. His father was a professional wing in Europe, played with TJ Thompson, Rutgers assistant. So, again, a different type of skill set. And, Egbole, they're really high on him as well. So we'll see what happens. Can they land Vincent? That will be a key question here coming out of the weekend. You have to imagine he's going to decide soon. Rutgers reports on June 15th. And it's going to be a matter of opportunity. But I think that, with Somerville and then Vincent and Egbole, I mean, the hope is, I think, of any position group, those guys potentially could be around the following year. And that would really become a strength for this program. So I like the vision there, and remains to be seen. Now, another question mark is PJ Hayes visited Rutgers this past week, has certainly not publicly committed. Think that there's, some other visits there in the works. He has, high major interest. There was some rumors or reports that, Seton Hall was involved. I don't believe that's where he's visiting. But in terms of what he could be, he is certainly fits a need as well in terms of a big wing who can shoot the three. Shot 40% at San Diego this past year, almost 200 attempts. He shot 45% the year. He shot 45% the year before for Division II Black Hills State in South Dakota. He shot 42.3% there overall. Don't dismiss Division II. Jack Golke was a career Division II player, transferred to Oakland, shot a ton. He made 37% of like over 300 attempts last year, including his heroic 10 3-point performance against Kentucky in the first round to beat them. He also made 6 against NC State in the loss. So shooting translates, and Hayes has size. Defensively, not quite sure what he's going to offer, but analytically, he marks high. He's in the top 10 of, I saw a chart, top 10 remaining players with the highest effective field goal percentages. He's in the top 10 at over 57%. Effective field goal percentage measures your 2 points and your 3 points together. So because he shoots 40% from three, your true shooting percentage skyrockets. He's, one of the most efficient players in the country. And he had a really low assist rate as well. I mean, he had 23 points against Arizona State. So the kid can light it up. He had 9 threes in the game for San Diego last season. So he is he would be a weapon. And, I'm just really excited about what this bench can look like. Obviously, the starting five is going to be crucial, but Rutgers is going to be deep. And they're going to have offensive weapons. It's going to look different. They're going to play different. Defense, rebounding, those are question marks. This is not going to be a perfectly constructed roster, but it has to have pieces that Steve Pikiell can work with to fit together. And I think that's what you saw last season is he just didn't have the pieces to make it work. And that is not, making him a victim. He built the roster. Obviously, there were challenges there. Cam Spencer, Paul Mulcahy leaving so late in the offseason. However, you have to credit Pikiell last season. I think one thing that gets lost is how many combinations he tried. And I know some people hated the hockey line substitutions and everything, but it was more he was creative at times in terms of trying to get key subs in certain spots to break out. And, he had success at times. I mean, Noah Fernandez against Wisconsin. Oscar had his moments in certain spots. There was other moments where he made some moves and it worked. He made plenty of other moves that didn't work. But I've always wanted to see Pikiell with a full roster in terms of, improved talent, improved depth, improved versatility, to see what, as a game coach, how he can really, because I think he's a very good game strategist, and his ability to mix and match and give opponents different looks on both ends of the floor with a roster that's fully stocked with all kinds of moving parts. I think that's Steve Pikiell at his best. So I'm excited about that. Let's hope, PJ Hayes makes the decision soon. And it's for Rutgers. The dead period starts on May 22nd. So good for Rutgers to get two key visitors here in the final week before the dead period. Obviously, ideally, you'd like to have your roster set by Memorial Day with the team coming on June 15th. So we'll see what happens. But I wouldn't rule anything out with Rutgers at this point, in terms of where they're looking for guys, whether it's the JUCO level, high school level, the portal, overseas. Anything could happen here. And Hayes and Vincent, those are two pieces that, those are respectable pieces. Those are pieces that would fill needs if they ultimately land at Rutgers. And they have upside, both of them. So I think you have to be optimistic as a Rutgers fan here. Hope they, at least land one of them. And we'll see what happens. Who knows? The staff has got plenty of backup plans. And I'm sure they're working on some other things as well. Not everything is reported. And sometimes when things are reported, it's not necessarily 100% accurate. So keep your head on a swivel going into a busy weekend. If anything does break in terms of a commitment, obviously I'll have a rapid reaction to that. But, I think things are starting to pick up. And it was kind of dead there for a couple of weeks after the May 1st portal deadline. Grad transfers can no longer enter the portal. There's going to be some shaking out, some nationally with the NBA draft when the early interim players ultimately withdraw. But a guy like Hayes has been on the market a little bit and his value is going up. So that's going to happen with some other players. And then at the same time, other players that maybe were hoping for bigger and better things, their market's going to drop. And maybe Rutgers swoops in and gets someone like that. So a lot to be fleshed out still. But in terms of the big situation with Vincent, adding a high schooler does make sense. Again, it's not, if you had your druthers, the ideal scenario is to add a starting big with experience out of the portal. But I think that, if you can't do that for NIL reasons, and in terms of, Somerville is a guy that has a lot of confidence, has a versatile game, and, they need a competitive edge, and he's coming to Rutgers to play. So how Steve Pikiell manages all this, again, is such a key to next season, but it's a great problem to have, and I hope fans are optimistic going into what we hope is a beautiful spring weekend. Thanks for listening and watching to the Scarlet Faithful podcast once again.